Welcome to the podcast series Unshakable Strength, Empowering Black Women, sponsored by the Empower Project. The Empower Project is a partnership between Howard University and Health HIV, sponsored by the PACE grant from Gilead Sciences. Girlfriend's podcast miniseries, Unshakable Strength, Empowering Black Women, is dedicated to addressing the unique health challenges faced by Black women and girls, particularly in the context of HIV prevention. We will explore important topics such as sexual health, mental well-being, access to health care, and strategies for HIV prevention tailored to the needs of Black women and girls. We invite you to listen to our other series that explore important topics like trauma and health disparities, stigma and cultural understanding, nurturing healthy relationships. These and other are currently available to you. Today's episode, EmpowerHer, Black Women Navigating Life in Professional Spaces, will be exploring the unique challenges and triumphs of Black women in professional environments. Today's panelists are Shantae Spriggs. She is a proud native of Washington, D.C. She is an active member of the community, serving in various roles in local and national organizations. And in December of 2020, on World AIDS Day, she published her first book, Undetected, More Than a Status, in which she shares her personal journey in living with HIV. We also have Jolene Jima. Jolene is a rising star in business and technology, currently pursuing a degree in computer information systems at Howard University. As the Vice President of National Association of Black Accountants and Chair of Scholarship and Development for Kappa Alpha Psi, Jolene is dedicated to creating initiatives that foster the professional growth of her peers. Beyond her corporate and academic experience, Jolene is also an entrepreneur and has launched Styled by Joe, a hair service business in the DC area, guided by her motto, embracing and empowering Black beauty, one hairstyle at a time. Ladies, I'd like to welcome you to the podcast, and I'd like to start this off with just asking you, Shantae, just could you tell me, like, what are some of the myths and stigmas that exist that you would like to debunk about Black women in professional spaces?
We're going to start right away. We're jumping right in. Okay,
Right in.
okay, let's go. First of all, thank you for having me. I think one of the myths that we need to debunk that's often, I guess, stamped upon us is the fact that Black women are typically viewed as being angry or too aggressive, when simply sometimes, most of the time, it's about us being assertive. And I think the two can be misconstrued. Oftentimes we don't have a voice. And so when we do raise our voice, it's typically viewed as, okay, there they go. Well, what do you mean, there they go? What happens if we don't speak up? I think that's one of the biggest stigmas that I do see, because oftentimes it requires me to do, and I know we'll talk about it probably later, code switching, or I will have to often, dummy myself down, if I would say, just because I don't want to come off as that person. And so it requires me to be a little bit more strategic in my approach. But that's one I definitely see that's common with Black women.
Wow, thank you. Thank you for that. So, like, what are some of the strategies that you've developed to overcome, like, the Black women's unique challenges in professional environments? And I'm thinking more like what are like those microaggressions, performance biases in your career, right? And then I'd like to end that by asking, like, what are some of the advice that you'd like to offer to other Black women that may be going through some of the similar challenges?
I think, first of all, going into these spaces and recognizing that microaggressions in a professional or corporate space is more common than not. Um, and I think sometimes going into it, understanding that that may be something that you face, kind of allows me to take a proactive approach versus hearing something. I remember I was in a meeting, just to give you an example, and I was on Zoom, and someone mentioned, oh, the city that we live in, the state that we live in, we still believe in hanging. And I immediately froze up. But now I go into these spaces, especially when I'm the only executive or the only woman that may hold that role, especially with men. I typically know, okay, this may be something that I face. And so typically what I have done is I immediately try to address it. Whether it's, of course, I'm not going to call them out in the middle of a meeting. I didn't do that at that time, but I kindly text my manager and say, hey, we need to have a conversation about this because where's the cultural humility? Where's the cultural competency? Where's the diversity? Where's the understanding? And so even if not, then it's not actually heard or responded to, or I guess handled in the manner that I seek, then I will go to HR or ethics or wherever I need to go. Because I think the more that we do not, as Black women, address it, the more common that it happens. And so I've
Right.
learned now I have to raise my hand or I have to say, I mean, one time I was in another meeting and someone said, oh my God, there she go. What do you mean there I go? I'm just being assertive. And it's like, okay, she has her earrings on today. And that's what does that mean? And so I've started just what I just did here. I'll say, well, what does that mean? And I'll ask the question. What does that mean? Me wearing earrings. We all have, I see all the women here have earrings. What does me having earrings? Or if I come on a call and they see my hair is different. Oh, Shantae, I love your braids. I wish my hair was like that. Well, you know what? You can go get the same style. It's down at the beauty supply store as well. You can buy the same hair. So I started like addressing it right then and there so they know, okay, maybe we need to approach this differently. Those are one of the ways. Another way I would say with performance bias, going back to that part, I've started documenting everything that I'm doing quarterly. I make sure I document
Yes, yes.
what I'm doing. I bring it before my manager. I don't wait to the end of the year to say, okay, these are the things I've done throughout the entire year. I make sure in our one-on-one, which we have twice a month, that I bring it up. And then not only just what I do in corporate space, because I've been in finance for 20 years. I work for a global bank. I also bring up what I do in the community so they can see that my leadership role goes beyond just in this corporate banking space, but it kind of broadens out to the community, which makes them look good as well because they feel as though they have a part of that. But those are just some things that I've done as far as advice. I think that was the third question. That's a loaded question, depending upon the situation, because you have to know your space, you have to know your audience, and you have to know how to address it. I would just say, first of all, know your value and
Mm-hmm.
recognize that you are valued. And you don't have to just tolerate someone disrespecting you, but there is a way to approach it, depending upon the situation. And it doesn't have to be that angry Black woman syndrome.
Thank you. So, Jolene, in listening to all of that, what challenges do you see as a college student and a Black woman that carries over into professional lives?
I think one of the main challenges that me as a college student right now that I'm trying to tackle is the issue of being burnt out and stressing myself out and overworking because I feel like growing up that was kind of something that I was pushed to do to always make sure that you were doing something, that you were achieving this and achieving that. And as Black women in society, that's something that, we're constantly told that we're just, always on the go. And so for me as a college student, I feel like I came in kind of holding on to that mindset of like, okay, like I'm here at Howard University, I have to make the most of my experiences, I have to take all these classes, get involved in this. And the difference is instead of being in high school, now I'm in college, I'm an adult, I'm on my own, and I can't, run to my mom as quickly. I can't just,
Right.
take stuff off my plate. Like I'm an adult and I have to face it head on. And it's something I'm trying to take care of now because I recognize that my time at Howard has ran quickly and I'm about to be a senior in a couple of months. And so this is something I need to tackle now. So when I get into the corporate space, I'm not, dealing with this as a full on adult with the responsibility of rent and, whatever the case may be.
Mhm. Thank you. So speak a little bit about um, what do you think some of those challenges are going to be for you once you leave Howard and move into those corporate spaces? Like, how do you think that you may be perceived as this Black woman, being assertive, or what kind of tools do you think you're going to take with you that you've learned in school that you can carry over into your professional life in dealing with sometimes you may be the only person in the room that looks like you and representation matters?
Definitely. Growing up, I feel like there's been quite a bit of spaces in my life where I have been like the only Black woman or the only
Hmm.
Black person. And so, because I'm in that space, I've had to learn how to advocate for myself. And so, think that's definitely something I have to take or continue to build on and take with me as I get into, my actual career, but also just staying confident in my abilities and my skills. Like, these are the things that I know how to do. And I think, especially when I get into like corporate spaces, like the idea of me being not as, or the idea of me not having the necessary skills to execute whatever the job may be, and that's a
Hmm.
common thing that happens to a lot of Black women, that we're in spaces that we actually don't belong to be in. But I feel like if I'm here, I'm here. I made it for a reason. So just
Hmm.
staying confident in what it is that I have to bring.
Thank you. So we know that intersectionality plays a significant role in how Black women experience professional spaces. Shantae, can you share how your identity has shaped your journey, and how you've balanced multiple roles, identities that come with being the Black woman in corporate America?
Yes. And I kind of want to just tag on a little bit of what Jolene was
Hmm.
talking about
Please
and
do. Yes.
making sure you don't burn yourself out. And it's funny because not only do you see before you like a woman that's living with HIV, first you have the woman, then you have the fact that I'm a Black woman, then
Hmm.
you have the fact that I'm a Black woman that's considered a single mom for two. I've been divorced twice. So then is that caveat. But then you have the educated Black woman, but then you have the woman that's living with HIV,
All right, now
all
come
those
on.
different things.
Yes.
And um, I think where I erred in this journey is thinking I had to show up my best in all of those,
Mm.
understanding that I had to grow into the assistant VP that I am now. I
Hmm.
had to grow into the entrepreneur role. I had to grow even as a mom. And
Hmm.
really, I didn't get that to the second child. There's so many things I had to grow. And I think oftentimes, and I think Jolene talked about this. I'm so glad that you are saying, hold up, I need to look at this before I enter the corporate space. I went in so many different roles throughout my journey within the bank. As soon as I land another role or opportunity, I thought I had to show up where I ended the last role. So if I ended on mastery level, I felt as though I had to show up in that new position already at mastery level, not giving myself
Wow.
grace. And
Hmm.
what happened is oftentimes my body would take a toll. My immune system would get compromised. My anxiety would rise up. I would have depression because I was trying to be so much when now I'm learning after just turning 50. Um, I don't have to be all those things all the time.
All the
And
time.
I can
Right.
balance it out. There's times that I need to show up and be, the analyst. There's times I need to show my management side. There's times I may need to raise my hand and be the facilitator, but I don't have to do all of them all the time. And sometimes what that means is I've learned how to step back
Hmm.
so I can step up for Shantae,
Yes.
because trying to take all those different roles, who is that proving something to? And I realized most of the time I was still trying to prove to that little girl inside of me that I was enough.
Hmm.
When after the second degree, the third degree, and the fourth degree, I without any degrees, I'm already enough. And I don't think I was realizing that. So now when I go in spaces, I don't raise my hand right away to say, let me take the project. Let me learn
Hmm.
this position first. Let me get it to where I understand it, where it makes sense. And then I can take on something else. Because I think also as Black women, and Jolene, I know you're probably going to talk about this. We often feel as though we have to perform. We
Hmm.
have to outperform our counterparts when in all actuality, that same amount of pressure is not on them. So don't hold me to that same standard. And I'm not going to hold myself to that.
Yeah, sometimes it just feels like mediocrity is just enough for others, where we have to prove ourselves over and over, time and time again, right? So I respect that. Thank you for that. Jolene, do you have anything that you'd like to add on to that?
Absolutely. Just kind of tying it back into the idea of like being burnt out. Like, I used to think, okay, well, I can just sleep it away. Like, maybe I'm just tired, like maybe I can rest and wake up in the morning and I'll be okay. But what would happen is I would sleep and then wake up to the same routine. So I think
Mhm.
it's important to also make sure that you're making those structural changes in your schedule. So, what am I doing throughout the day that's making me so burnt out? Do I need to reduce my workload? Do I need to prioritize my self-care better? And just keeping things like that in mind.
I like that. Thank you.
Jolene, I gotta jump in. Can I?
Come on,
Can I?
please
Can I?
do. Come on now.
Jolene, where you been? Like, I want to take you. Look, I'm gonna take you on the road with me, and I'm gonna go with you. I love this because we have two different generations here, but to see that you're already saying, okay, let me take charge of my self care. Let me take charge of my schedule. I think it's important as women to see also what is your rhythm. Like,
Mhm.
what hours in the day are you most productive? I may log on 7 in the morning, but they know don't put a meeting on my calendar before 10 a.m. because I even gave away the whole bank because I'm
Mhm.
not coherent. But my best times are between like 11 and 3. I'm knocking things out. So I think also too, just because something worked for Jolene or worked for Carmelita doesn't mean necessarily that it will work for Shantae. We have to figure out our own rhythm and figure out what works for us and work that, and then also set boundaries during those times. So I'm glad you brought that up.
And I also believe that, thank you for that. And I think that we also, prior to, during, and after we're looking for that job, we're in that job. And once we get that job, we need to have that work-life balance, right? So whatever your priorities are to self and self-care, right, you need to maintain those. So if you know that you have an obligation to go bowling or whatever on Tuesday nights at 7, you know that you can't be at work until whatever hour. And so by setting those boundaries upfront and early with your new position or within your position, I think that that is also a way that we can do some self-care and we can have that work-life balance that we're always trying to attain. Right. Thank you. Let's talk about some mansplaining.
I'll let
So,
Jolene take that first.
okay. So we all know what mansplaining is. It's when we have when men are talking to us as if we just don't understand something and we're looking at them like, you crazy. I know what you're talking about. So tell me how you facilitate and getting around mansplaining when clearly you might be way smarter than he is.
I think this is something I'm just kind of like coming into contact with, like really, because I just had my first like summer internship where I was
Mhm.
like working at a company for a significant amount of time. And it was odd. Like I've known about mansplaining, I've, tried my best to, but I was just in awe, like when it actually first happened to me. I was just like, oh, this is actually really happening right now. Like he's dumbing this down as if I've never, this is my major. Like I understand what's going on, but I
Mhm.
think just kind of tying back to, I think I'd mentioned like remaining confident in your skills and abilities is the most important thing you can do. And also just taking a moment to breathe, because I think when stuff like this happens, it's quick to react, but I think I can take it as a moment to reflect and just kind of sit back. But also, like Shante had mentioned, addressing things head on is also really important as well.
Jolene, I'm real curious to hear what you have to say.
Here.
Oh, you want me to go? Okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So I would say I've learned how to sometimes, once again, know my audience, understand if this person is a viable stakeholder.
Mm-hmm.
If there's someone that's not going to be relevant in my position or relevant in my future or relevant in my career growth, I don't have to say, you were wrong. This is what it, I don't have to. I can just let you have that. And typically what I do is smile. And what I'll do later is I may bring it up to my manager and say, hey, when this was brought up, I do have something, recommendation. And I'll say it in a sense of based on my experience in
Mm-hmm.
this department or based on my experience, this is something that I would recommend. And I would love to, I've also offered myself to partner with that individuals,
Mm-hmm.
and typically they don't want to work. They don't want to work with us. They don't want to work with me. But with me actually putting that out there, they see like, oh, okay. And sometimes I've even brought that up in meetings, like, oh, okay, that's great. Well, based on my experience,
Yeah.
and it's like they immediately it immediately gathers them to where they're like, oh, she has some experience in here. Or I may mention, okay, so I've been here like 20 years. And the one thing I do know that, I work for Citibank. So I
Mm-hmm.
say the C stands for change, or it can
Mm-hmm.
stand for chaos. And what I've learned is And with me saying, okay, based on my 15 years or my 20 years, they're like, okay, hold up, wait a minute. Okay, we see. So it's just, once again, sometimes I feel like doing this, sometimes it's not worth it. And I'm just like, you know what, I'm gonna step back and I'm gonna let you have it, because
Mm-hmm.
once again, it's that balance of, do I want to get my emotions involved? Do I want to go through all that, when really the self-regulation I need right now is understanding that this may not be a battle I need to take on, and I'll let you have it. That's
And I'll
fine.
let you have
Have
it
it.
right on. Okay. All right. I like that. So you did mention that you have 20 years in finance. Um, so tell me, how have you leveraged your experience and knowledge to empower and uplift others within your career and your community?
So within my career, I've actually been a mentor, across cross-functional, not just within my particular department or in my particular state, but I've been a mentor, to several people that was at, levels that were lower than me, that was
Hmm.
just coming in the door. I mentored them, as well as, I have been mentored. So I
Hmm.
have mentors both inside the bank and outside of the bank. That's one way that I've actually seen it. Also, outside of the bank, I actually make sure that I mentor women. I mentor other women that are living with HIV. I've been a part of, I'm a coach also. So I've also coached individuals. And my biggest thing is, like, I always like to show people, okay, how do you take that expertise that we use 9 to 5? How you
Hmm.
get that and make some money off of that? So that way you don't have to wait for a raise once a year. You can go ahead and give your own self a raise by you tapping those into your own business. So those are ways that I actually continue to empower, individuals both inside the bank and outside of the bank. And I'm always that auntie to everyone. I meet someone, they're immediately going to call
Yeah.
me T or auntie, because I'm okay. What are you doing with your life? When are we going to meet so I can see what's going on with you? What's the
Hmm.
things that you're doing right now that you're doing, giving away for free, but someone else is getting paid to do it? Let's work on one of them. So that's in me to do. I could be at a bus stop. I could be on a plane. If someone have a conversation, somehow that piece of me is going to come out. And so that's kind of just what I do, both inside and outside of the bank.
Yeah. Jolene, what about you? So we're talking about mentorship. Tell me about some of your mentors or how they've influenced you and your personal and professional growth.
Absolutely. I growing up feel like I didn't have a lot of mentors, and so when I came to Howard, that was definitely something I was really excited to jump into. And so for me, my mentors, it's a place for me to come as a professional but also as a person, come to them with things I have questions about in regards to how my career may be going, how internships may be, the application season and internship, but also some of the more personal things that are going on in my life, because I feel like they tend to intersect. And what better way to figure out the answer to whatever I may be going through than to talk to someone who's had experiences with that. And so I hold my mentors like really dearly to me. I feel like they've definitely helped me in both those aspects a lot. Being here at Howard, they give me tips, tricks, whatever the case may be, pay for, a meal if they know that I'm down, I'm going through it with my finals, midterms, like they're always watching out for me, and they're just older figures that I can always come to. And then in regards to like being a mentor myself, like I have a couple of mentees, and I think it's just kind of taking everything that I've learned from my mentor, from my experiences at Howard, and pouring it into them. I think one of the things that I love the most about the positions that I hold on campus is that I've created spaces for individuals who look like me to come. So, like the Kentucky Student Association, students from Kentucky can come, and I have there's a mentee mentor program with that. And then also with other, as a South Sudanese American, there's other South Sudanese American girls on campus who I know are going through very similar things that I did. And so I'm able to pour into them the way that I would have wanted.
Wow. Before moving on, does anyone else want to share anything on this topic?
Just say that mentors, as Jolene uh, said, are very important. I think of where I am now. I
Hmm.
know for sure I would not be where I
Hmm.
am now. I came in the bank as a person that said, hello, thank you, just on the phones, thank you for calling such and such. And in 6 months, I had someone tap me on the shoulder and recognized things in me that I was the shy. I know it's hard to believe I was the shy, timid girl because I was going through a divorce. And at the time, I was going through a divorce from someone abusive. And so my
Mm-hmm.
self esteem was very low. What you see before you now is not who I was, but they saw just a snippet of it and they pulled it out of me. They gave me opportunities. And I think with mentorship, recognizing that at different levels, my mentor changed,
Yeah.
even though I still stay in contact with my all of them, the ones that are still living. But as I got to a different level, there were different needs that I had. There was different things that I needed someone to call that out of me that I had to embrace. And even within community, I had mentors within the bank, but then I also had some mentors outside because I never thought that I could bridge the two worlds. I
Mm-hmm.
thought as a woman living with HIV, I had to keep that part of my life over here, but then I had to keep the corporate side over here, and there was no congruency. And I had a mentor, Deidre Spears Johnson from Heart to Hand. She heard me say something that on Congress Hill at AIDS Watch. She said, "Hold up, you coming with me?" And she showed me how to bridge the two. And I started facilitating support groups, and then it went on to retreats, and then it went on to me facilitating for organizations and being here. Had I not had that mentor to grab me from just hearing a 2 minute speech, I would not be doing what I'm doing now. So I think also a part of it is us allowing ourselves to be open enough to receive from whomever, even if they don't necessarily fit our last level.
Mm-hmm.
You got to trust them, if that
Wow,
makes
that's beautiful. Right on. Thank you. Um, so I just want to switch it up a little bit and just talk about code switching. So, have you ever experienced code switching? And this is for you as well, Jolene, because you were a student now, right? And maybe being at Howard, not so much. I don't know. I'd like to hear from you. But as you continue your journey into professionalism, um, how do you think it affects women's ability to feel comfortable and authentic in professional spaces? I'm going to turn it over to you first, Shantae, and then I'd like to hear from Jolene.
we kind of touched on a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely, think, depends on, once again, your surroundings. I think the code switching, depending upon where I'm at. If I'm in an interview, I know sometimes I do it. It comes natural. And I think also understanding that even though there's so many different facets to us. There's so many facets to Carmelita, so many facets to Jolene, so many facets to Shantae, that everyone doesn't have to get the totality of who we are right away. And so it's okay for me to do a little acting. And let me put on the professional side right now
Mm-hmm.
because this is the role that I'm in. But when I need to be like a social event or something, I can bring it down just a little bit. So I will say I have been guilty, if it is such a thing, to actually code switch, because I don't really necessarily see it as that. I'm just looking at that's the role I have to pay for that moment till I see who's who and I build relationships.
Yeah.
Once I build relationships, then I can show them the true, authentic
Mm-hmm.
Shantae. But I
Mm-hmm.
don't have to do that right away. They can get my representative. It's just like
Right.
like we never get who, because I know I remember got married twice. I didn't know them up front. I found them out years ago who I was married to. But it's the same thing. But we're quick to, I guess, accept that in relationships, knowing that we're going to get their representative. But in these spaces, it's kind of frowned upon when we do it.
Mhm.
But I don't know. I look at it as the same. I'm building relationships, so I don't have to necessarily show you who I am right away or give you everything right away. I can make you earn it.
Yeah. I like that. Make them earn it. Awesome. So, Jolene, what about you?
This is really interesting because I feel like kind of what Shantae said, like you don't have to show all the different aspects of yourself. And I
Mhm.
think for me, before there was the label of codes, like before I really understood it was code switching, like I was just going crazy. Like I would be one person here and then one person there. And I feel like it really took away from my like genuine self-expression. Like who am I showing up as? Like I'd get home and I'd be burnt out. I'd be stressed because I'm just like, I feel like I'm putting on this facade, and I'm taking away from building authentic relationships because I'm not, showing up as who I really am. And so once I really started to understand what code switching is, I'm like, oh, okay. Instead of this controlling me, I can learn to use this to my advantage. So I don't have to show up as 100% Jolene in every single
Mm-hmm.
situation. Like sometimes it's just not necessary, but I think it's just knowing, like Shantae had said, the audience and going from there is important.
And it's also about knowing your comfort level, right? Just being comfortable who you are, and it's going to show up, right? So I think that that's also important. Um, Thank you both for that. So, what is that one piece of advice that you would like to give to um, future generations of Black women entering academia and or professional spaces? And I want to follow that up with like, what do you think your legacy is going to be? What is the legacy that you want to leave behind? I'm just throwing it out there for whomever wants to start. Jolene, I see you smiling. Why don't you start?
You can go ahead and start. I think for me, a piece of advice I would give is to just make sure that you use your voice and show up as your authentic self. I feel like in a lot of these spaces that we enter, the most important thing you can do is be 100% of who you are.
Mhm.
And I think just remember like your values and the things that you grew up, your experiences are really important because I feel like once I had a real understanding of who I was walking into any space, I knew I was going to show up as Jolene. I knew I was going to, be who I needed to be, and I was going to be comfortable. And I think in regards to my legacy, just I want to aim to show up for my community. I think one of the things that's most important to me as a first generation immigrant is making sure that I'm pulling up the people in my community and bringing them to the spaces that I'm in now. So I'm the first person in my family to go to college, and I'm also the first person in my family to go to Howard. So my little sister, my cousins, I'm telling them, hey, these are the things that you need to do to get to where I am. And I'm not telling you
Mhm.
to boost my own ego. I want to, create this trend. I want to see it keep happening. I want to look, 100 years from now, I want them to be able to say, yes, like it's normal in my family. Like they all go to Howard. So I'm going to Howard. Like that. I want to set the bar. So
Right on. Yes,
continue to inspire.
that's beautiful.
I can definitely see that, Jolene, because you are
Yeah, same,
inspiring.
right?
Yeah, you are inspiring me. And
Mm-hmm.
as you were talking, my mind went back because I was a part of Howard's University's Upward Bound program when I was attending Dunbar. And at that time, because college wasn't a thing that was spoken of a lot in my household, it was like, okay, get a job. But they was so far fetched. I didn't think I could be a person to even go to college. So to see, I didn't start my college pursuit until I was in my 40s, like late
Mm-hmm.
30s. And so to see that you're already there, Jolene, that is definitely an
Thank
inspiration to
you.
me and so many. Keep doing what you're doing. If I had some advice, I would say, and I'm speaking as if I'm speaking back to the older version, the younger version of Shantae. That's the way I kind of format it when I'm giving advice. Allow yourself grace to evolve. um, Knowing that every level, every space, as where I wasn't when I was 15, I'm a different person when I was 20, I was a different person when
Mm-hmm.
I was 25, and I evolve. And not only did I evolve, I need to allow myself grace because I think sometimes we put a lot of pressure on ourselves and realize, I know for me, I would say, hey, I'm 30 and I'm not where I want to be. But then I have to look back and see, okay, I'm not where I used to be either. And I need to give myself grace and instead of pouting or having a fit about, hey, I don't have the car yet, or I don't have the house yet, or I don't have another husband at the time. I'm forgetting the small wins that do add up. And so
Mm-hmm.
I would say just understand that you will evolve and give yourself space and grace to evolve. But when I say space, make room to
Mm-hmm.
evolve. Meaning sometimes when you make room, you gotta push people out the way.
Get
You
rid
know,
of the
sometimes,
baggage.
yeah, sometimes
Mm-hmm.
those relationships that were sufficient before, they may not be sustaining now because you are evolving. You may be the only person in your group that is evolving, and make room for the other ones to come in. As far as legacy, I think the one thing I would want to leave is I would want people to understand that I was a person that was resilient. No matter what is thrown at me, I'm going to rise above it. I may not snap back or bounce back right away, but I always come back. But also, I want people to understand that I'm a woman of empowerment, and empowering others is the way I'm empowered. And then last, I also want to be known as a person that had an unwavering love towards her community. No matter how far up I go or where I go or how much I evolve, I'm going to always find a way to reach back into my community, because my community was the one, when I became a woman living with HIV, found community. Yeah. I found family. And because of that, I could never forget who they are. And so as a result, I'm going to always pour back into the ones that gave me life.
Thank you. Jolene, do you have any last things that you'd like to share with us before we close out?
I said it all. I might
Yeah.
back to me. Let me ponder.
Okay. Any last words from you, Shantae?
We said it all. I feel like
Yeah, you left it all on the
self-care is
table. You
needed.
left nothing on the table, right?
Yeah.
Well, tell us how, if we wanted to get your book, how could we get your book?
There's a couple of ways. You can actually go to my website, shantaespriggs.com. And I have a page that can take you directly there, or you could just simply go to Amazon and put my name in, or you can just look it up, Undetected More Than a Status. I have 3 different versions. I have the book, the Kindle version, but then there's also one where I narrated on Audible myself.
What?
So if you want to hear that DC accent and really, yeah,
Right.
actually get
Oh,
the
that's amazing.
and
That's
there's a
amazing.
sample of it on there as well, so you can actually hear it first. So
Okay. Thank you. Well,
working on the second one, working on the second one.
I cannot wait for that one to come out. Jolene, was there something you'd like to add?
We left
Are
it
you
all on
good?
the table. Yeah, we said it all.
All right.
Jolene, where can I get your stuff? So
Yeah, how can we
your,
stay in touch with you as
yeah,
well?
yeah. Where can we find you?
Oh, like my LinkedIn and stuff?
Yeah, like didn't you say
Yeah.
you have your Styles by Joe?
Oh, yes. So I still have to officially launch, but it's Styled by Joe on Instagram. The underscore, pull it up real quick. She's a new page, but yes, doing services in on Howard's campus, but also in DC.
Okay.
Yes, Styled by Joe and then underscore.
Wonderful. Well, ladies, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And thank you all for tuning in to this episode of our podcast. We hope you found the conversation engaging and informative. If you found today's episode engaging, we encourage you to tune into our previous episodes covering topics like the power of education and breaking down barriers. Remember to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast. Thank you so much for your time and attention, and I look forward to seeing you the next time. Bye.